With Energia, energising homes and businesses all across Ireland.
You stroke 106 to 108.
A growing number of professionals are leaving high-pressure careers for the alternative of being their own bosses and living in the country. But is the grass really greener? And can boredom and a significant reduction in income threaten the idyllic lifestyle that many crave? Well, my next guest found out one way or the other. Fiona and Malcolm Falconer, you're very welcome to the programme.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Now, first of all, tell us a little bit about your professional background, because you did live in the Big Smoke.
Yeah, myself and I met Malcolm at the Royal College of Art in London, where we were about doing masters.
But you're an Irish girl.
I'm originally from Dublin, yeah, but I've lived all over the world. I did a master's in film production and then went into documentary, and I ended up running a production company in London for 10 years. We did international co-productions, mainly arts and history, while Malc worked for
it was a medical company. We worked for a huge American Bristol Myers Squibb, but we were an independent
company. How labour-intensive, hours-intensive, time-intensive were your jobs, Malcolm?
Oh, it was full on. I'd get up before the kids got up, so I'd be gone. So you wouldn't see them, and I'd come home just in time to see them go into bed, really.
I tried to work 4 days a week. I tried to work from home, but I literally locked myself in a room at home. We had 2 nannies minding our 3 children.
Yeah.
And we were on a crazy treadmill.
So you're both doing very well professionally, though, in terms of income and all of that.
We had a big house, we had lots of money.
Double income, lots of kids.
At what point did you get to the decision that, look, something's got to give? We cannot keep getting up before the kids, coming home after they're gone to bed, basically, and trying to be a family only at weekends?
Well, trying to identify the trigger, I think it's always been there. But I personally think it was Hugh Fearnley-Whittingstall I used to work with way back when he was doing the Roadkill series. And he just brought a new series out. And we sat down and we literally just, because you tend to, you have a plan, you leave college, you're ambitious, you get your job, you work your career up, and you lose sight of what you're working towards. You just get on a faster treadmill. And you're always chasing, I suppose you think you're chasing happiness, but you don't actually stop and assess what happiness is. So we sat down and we looked at our lives and we said, well, do you know what? We're going to die and we're not going to have done anything for ourselves. So let's change it. And where are our pressure points? And the pressure points are we're not at home. We don't see each other. We don't see the children. And at the weekends, we spend a ridiculous amount of money pretending we had a life. So it was an assessment of what was happiness to us.
Now, the initial plan would have been to stay somewhere in the UK, I presume, find a patch of land, build an eco-house and search out the good life.
Yeah, the patches of land in the UK were almost impossible to find, especially in the area of where we lived around London. I mean, it was an absolute non-starter. The only land available would have been green belt land with the odd chance that you might be able to build on it in the future, which wouldn't ever really be the case.
So Ireland or France or Spain beckoned, I presume. But Ireland won.
Ireland won, yeah. No, I have family here, but to be honest, it really didn't matter where we went. I wanted to be near the sea. I'd spent 10 years away from the coast, so that was my only prerequisite. So literally, we took a map out, stuck it down the table, and threw a pin into the middle of it. And it landed in Gorey in County Wexford, which we've no connection to. And we decided, OK, we'll take a 30-mile radius. We threw the kids in the car, we got the ferry across, and we went to look at every site we could.
Yeah, we spent about 7 days just looking at 20, 30 bits of ditches, land, hills.
And our criteria was the biggest amount of land for the least amount of money.
Oh, all right. So you wanted land so you could grow things, but you also needed space to build a house.
Yes, that's right.
So planning permission, was that something you needed, that you'd have to buy something that already had pre-planning?
Yeah. Yes, we had a plot which had planning on, not for a eco house, we stressed out. It was for one of these horrible bungalows with conservatories facing in the wrong direction and that sort of thing.
So that's what you found. Of all the sites that you looked at, this one recommended itself. What was the turning point for that one over and above the other ones?
Well, it was when we went to see it, it was a big open empty field. There was nothing near it, no pylons, no motorways. And we thought we'd drive around the area, and we drove down the road and we found a little sandy path, and we drove to the end of the sandy path and we were on the most incredible long white stretch of sandy beach. And that sold it for me. And there was a kind of a homecoming about that, because you suddenly realised the life we were having in London was very relevant, and this was a presentation of the life we could have. So it sold it, hook, line and sinker. That was it. That was jumping ship there and then.
Now, what did you intend to do when you came here to your little patch of land and your newly built house?
Well, I think you get an awful lot of courage when you jump, that you believe in yourself. And at the end of the day, we said, you know what, we were aiming to live mortgage free. We were living in the country, which meant you didn't spend a tenner the minute you walked out the door. We were hoping to be pretty self-sufficient. And at the end of the day, I could always waitress, he could do bar work. We weren't really that bothered of, the career thing. It was very much, once we jumped, we're going to go with it.
The children were all relatively young at the time.
1, 3 and 5.
Yeah, so shifting wasn't a big tug for them.
No.
But the difference in where they were living, I mean, countryside compared to the concrete jungle that is virtually any part of London, it must have been a bit of a fright for the older one particularly.
Well, they couldn't understand any of the kids in the local school to start. Now, I have to say, moving into a small community, and it is a very small community where we are, they were so welcoming and the integration was seamless. And it works both ways for people, the blow-ins and for the established community, that both benefit.
Now, doing something then with the land, you decided, we'll do a little kitchen garden, we'll grow things. But there was something that you were careful of the kids, that they could mess around in your patch and there'd be nothing that would do them harm.
Well, it was integrating them into the countryside.
Yeah.
Now, Malk would have been brought up, his parents jumped ship from London.
Back in the 70s. They kind of did the original Felicity Kendall and Richard Briers.
They did the good life.
They did it, yeah. We had a farm I grew up on. It was only about 12 acres. It was a proper small holding.
And did you therefore know how to do things?
I knew how to do things. I mean, when I got to 18, I wanted to get away from it as fast as I could because I wanted to go to the city and do it the other way. And then, you kind of suddenly appreciate what you had beforehand and you kind of want to recreate it.
You knew with the patch of land that you'd never starve anyway.
Absolutely, yeah. We had the feeling of building this. I got into reading about permaculture, where you kind of live with the land, and we developed this thing called a forest garden, which is where you plant trees, which are like a high layer of food, and underneath it you'll plant, say, fruit bushes, which are on the lower level, and then beneath the bushes you could have wild garlic, or you could have herbs, or even stinging nettles. So you build things up in tiers, rather than having these big, huge monofields of one crop. Yes, it's a completely different way, and then it gives a kind of a ramble area the kids go into, and everything in there is edible, including red berries.
Okay, well, one of the things about you have an apple tree that say has cooking apples, and you get them all at the same time, and you just can't consume them fast enough. You can't make enough tarts or pies. How did you cope with the surplus at some stages of some foods and then the shortage at others?
Well, that's where the business came from. So we planted the forage forest and we went a little bit nuts on it because it was our first effort. We foraged a lot of plants and we also used a lot of heritage seeds, and we had everything you can imagine in there. And about 4 years in, we got the mother of all harvests and suddenly thought, what are we going to do with all this stuff? So Malk started making jams. And preserves and syrups, and anyone who passed the door got a brace load. But actually what happened was they kept coming back and saying, would you do
any more of that stuff? Yeah.
Would you do a hamper for my mother or whatever? But the whole ethos behind it is like the leaving the London thing. We practice slow food, which is non-intensive farming. And we don't use chemicals on our land, and in our kitchen we just use sugar and vinegar.
But going from a kitchen business to a proper business, because, there's all these food regulations and rules that you have to adhere to if you're going to put stuff on the shelves of shops. How big a transition was that?
Well, luckily for us, my medical background, I ran the medical device department for research and innovation and these new products I did, and the regulations around medical devices are very, very similar to food, because in both jobs you can kill someone and you have to follow the paper trails. In effect, it was virtually taking what I did in my previous job and just readjusting it to the new job. So we were lucky in that respect. We had a quality system that I could almost pick up from my previous life and reapply to my new life.
But your food is seasonal.
Yes.
So, someone buys one of your chutneys, although they have a good long shelf life. But suppose you're making...
But the range changes, so we get people up to the stall, and it's funny because we have our stall for 3 years now.
And where's your stall?
The People's Park in Dunleary every Sunday.
Yeah.
But we also do all the national food festivals around the country. And it's lovely when people come up and they go, is the carrot in yet? Is it in yet? So the nettles have just come in this week and the rhubarb has just come in this week. And then things will drop off, like the elderberry is dropping off, the rosehip stock is dropping off.
Now, you had been using forage stuff.
Yes.
And I heard people talking about foraging and how great it is. But eventually you will denude the countryside of stuff if you become big enough. So you therefore have to almost crop stuff. Is that what you're doing now, say, with nettles?
Well, nettles here, I think we're the only commercial nettle farmer in the country. We've actually got a 390 square metre polytunnel where we grow them from seed.
The nettle pesto, you say, has taken off big time. And I've heard of nettle soup, but I didn't realise that it is one of the superfoods. It does so many things, and one thing that I hadn't been aware of, but I'm now aware of thanks to you.
Nettles are genuinely one of our superfoods, and you know there's a lot of diversification that could go on in Irish farming. And nettles have shown in clinical trial to reduce blood pressure, to clear the uric acid from your kidneys. They're used in the treatment of gout, arthritis, prostate, psoriasis, asthma. They've got vitamin A, B1, B2, the mental agility vitamins. They're packed with polyphenols, which are antioxidants, similar to blueberries. They grow in every hedge in the country, and they're free. Why don't we eat them? And actually, I was talking to a microbiologist recently, and he said, Fiona, you're missing a trick on the nettles. I said, why? Because I read all the trials. He said, when we digest nettles, there's an enzyme in our digestive tract that turns the nitrogen in the nettle into nitric oxide. And they're currently trialling nitric oxide as an alternative for Viagra. So there really is nothing that nettles can't do.
Put a sting in. Well, no, we won't go there. So this is currently seasonal. Nettles are out now.
Nettles are out, and the nettles are brilliant because they usually come in by St. Paddy's Day, and they'll go right through till about October. They're a fabulous herb because they're a cut and come again herb. So the more you pick them, the more you get.
The more they grow.
Well, it's so many years since you first made that crucial decision in London. Any regrets at all?
Not so far.
Well, then there won't be any, I suspect.
Do you know, I'm very happy with where we are. And I think life is moving very, very fast. I think each decade we approach, it just moves faster. The pressure on people to work harder, to run faster on the treadmill, chasing happiness. Sometimes it's just stopping for a moment, assessing where you are, and you'll find your happiness that way.
Well, it looks like the pair of you certainly did. And Wild About is your brand, and www.wildabout.ie will give a list of your products, when they might be in season, and all the outlets where they can be found.
Yeah, the stockists, we have a list of how you use the products as well, because that was another interesting part of what we did, not being from a food background, learning how people taste things and giving them ideas. So diversification of use is one of our big things. The nettle pesto is fabulous on fish. It's really good with new potatoes, boiled potatoes. You can put a herb crust on salmon. You can fillet a chicken breast. You can make garlic bread. Or you can just have it with pasta. I eat it out of the jar with a chilled bottle of wine. I think that's quite sufficient.
Well, I've just tried it with a little cheese, and it's really great. It really is great. Look, thank you both very much for joining us. Fiona and Malcolm Falconer. Thank you.
Thank you.
The Pat Kenny Show.
With Energia, now bringing you Ireland's best dual fuel offer. Hi,